Hi, I'm Angelique and I'm on Pins and Needles to talk to you about pins and needles. In this product highlight video, we're going to go over the importance of both pins and needles in your quilting. We're going to talk about the anatomy of a machine needle and how it functions with your sewing machine. And we're also going to talk about the importance of what size to pick for both your thread and the fabric that you are using. We're also going to talk about some common issues that may arise in your sewing that could be caused by your needle. Remember to like and subscribe to our Grace Company support channel so you get all of your information about all of our great products. Pins are a common quilting tool that sometimes are just overlooked. They come in a variety of sizes and thicknesses, but today we're going to talk about the quilting pins that we offer because of their versatility. We offer a pack of 150 quilting pins with these cute little flower heads. They're designed to be flat so you can easily grip them, so you can file them into your quilt sandwich or your layers of material as you are sewing. They are approximately 2 inches in length, making them extra long so they can go through multiple layers with ease. Quilting pins are so versatile. Let's take a look at some of the ways you can use them. Quilt pins are great for adding leaders to your backing fabric. They are great for basting your layers together. They're great for pinning layers together for sewing. They're also great for pinning your blocks so that you get those perfect points and seams lined up. In fact, they're great for all kinds of crafts, including floral arrangements or even your hair. Now let's talk about sewing machine needles, and let's start with their anatomy. It's very important how these actually function in your sewing machine and why you might pick one versus another. So I have some images of our sewing machine needles here, and we're going to start with the butt. The butt is the end, this part here of your needle. It's what you're going to actually insert into your machine. Then we have the shank. This is the part that the locking mechanism of your sewing machine grabs onto, and so it does need to be completely inserted properly. Otherwise, your needle's too long when you go to try to sew, and that's a good way to break the tip. Now, depending on the type of machine that you have, they'll either be flat on one side, which you'll find in most of your domestic sewing machines, or they're going to be completely round. And these are the ones that we offer because all of our machines require the full circle. The next part is the shoulder, and this is just the part that is going to narrow from the shank to the next part of your needle. The next part of your needle is called the shaft, or sometimes called the blade. You're going to have one side that has a different shape to it than the other side, and we're going to look a little bit closer at that next. But the size of your needle is actually determined by the shaft or blade. So when you see the different needle sizes, which we will talk about, it has to do with that particular diameter. Next, we have the groove. The groove here is basically a channel that allows your thread to ride along in it. It just helps keep it in control. So if you've put your needle in backwards, then it's not going to have that guide. Next, we have the scarf. There's like this little hump. And depending on the type of needle that you get, this is going to be slightly different in shape, and that's very important. Next, we have the eye. This is where your thread is going to get inserted into your needle. So your thread kind of goes through this groove, through this eye to the back of the needle. And lastly, we have the point or tip. It can be different shapes as well. So you have your pretty standard one, which is going to be a sharp point, or there's also ball points. In quilting, the ones that we offer are the regulars or your typical sharp point, and that's because of what it is you're doing. With quilting, the majority of the fabrics you're using are some type of cotton. Now, if you've ever wondered what all of the numbers on your sewing machine needle packages mean, well, let's talk about that. You're going to see the numbers which are going to refer to the size of your needle, and they're going to be listed in metric or the US imperial system. So your metric numbers are going to be like the 90, the 100, the 110, and those actually refers to the millimeters of that shaft. So when you see 90, that means that it's 0.90 millimeters in diameter, 100 would be 1 millimeter, 110 would be 1.10 millimeters. Now in the other numbers, the 14, the 16, the 18, that's the US/imperial system. They don't really correspond to some actual measurement, they're just some number to indicate that it's a different size. Now, for both of these types of measurements, the larger the number, the bigger the diameter of the needle. That is going to correspond to its durability and thickness and the type of fabric that you're going to want to use. We offer Gross-Beckert needles in the 3 most common sizes used in quilting: the 90-14, the 100-16, and the 110/18. If you ever look very closely at your needles, you are going to see some information on those needles. So you're going to see GB here, which indicates the brand on this one, the Gross-Beckert. You're going to see some sizing information. Those are numbers that Gross-Beckert uses to indicate their sizing as well. The other thing that you're going to note is the MR. So if you kind of compare this to your packaging, you'll see the 3.0, the 3.5, and so on. This particular needle here is a 90/14. There is another indicator here, which is the MR, and that has to do with the special anatomy of these needles that has been designed especially for quilting. And then lastly, there is an indicator here. This R lets you know that this particular needle is the regular typical point versus like the ball point that we talked about earlier. So let's now talk about the different sizes and what they're best used for. First and foremost is the type of thread that you're using. So your 90-14 needles will work with monofilament threads, really good for smaller weight threads, and the reason for that has to do with the needle hole. For your 116, again, monofilament will work pretty much in most of your needle sizes, but it's recommended 50 and 60 weight thread, cotton or polyester. And then for your 110-18, 30 to 40 weight cotton or polyester. So the smaller the number, the thicker the thread. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Let's also talk about the type of material that is best used with different needles. Always kind of side on your thread thickness for making your choices. When it comes to your 90-14, you're looking at your medium weight woven fabrics like cotton. That's usually a very good choice for that. For your 116, heavier weight fabrics when you're piecing together, like your traditional denim, canvas. This is also the size that we recommend for most types of quilting because you are going through more than one layer, including batting. And then our 110-18 is great also for denim, usually your heavier weight denims and your upholstery fabric. Finally, let's just talk about some of the typical sewing issues that you might run into from time and time again that may be caused by your needle. Those are skip stitches and loops, broken needles, and thread breakage. Now, some of the things that can cause that are if you're using the wrong size needle for your thread. When you try to take a thicker thread and put it through the eye of the needle, it's really rubbing up against that, and so it's going to cause it to start splitting. And when that happens, it starts to unwind, it becomes weaker, and guess what happens? Your thread eventually breaks. Another cause could be you're using the wrong needle type for quilting. If you've gotten some that are not MR and you're quilting and you're experiencing a lot of those things like thread breakage or your needle breaking, then you've just got the wrong type of needle for your particular machine that you're working on. The other is the orientation of your needle. Because our quilting machines do not have that flat edge, you have to make sure that you have properly installed that needle. So let's go take a look on how to do that. Needles should be installed so that the groove is facing at the 6 o'clock from the front or the long arm portion of the machine. To be sure that you're in the correct position, you want to use the magnet that came with your machine to adjust that so it's in that proper position. The other thing is you want to make sure that you tighten it well. Now you don't want to over torque it obviously, but if you don't do it tight enough, when you're sewing, it's going to loosen and loosen and loosen, and that needle's going to slide right out and eventually get caught and it's going to break. And if you do end up dropping your needle in there, you do risk the chance of knocking your sewing machine out of timing. So definitely be sure that you have installed them well. Other things such as damaged needles, bent needles, burrs or spurs can develop. All these things can cause trouble with your fabric and your thread. Go ahead and change it, because even if you can't see the bend, your machine can feel it. And just general wear and tear of needles. As you are sewing, they get dull. And so it's always a good idea to change them frequently. Both pins and needles get dull with use. Pins, when they get dull, they won't go through your fabric as easy, and they can cause things like runs and tears in your fabric. Be sure to dispose of your needles and your pins in a safe container, like a sharps container. I make my own. As far as how often should you replace your machine sewing needles, we recommend at least at the beginning of every new project. But you also need to take into consideration the type of fabric that you're using, because some fabrics are going to be rougher and cause that wear to happen more quickly, and the size of your project. So if you're working on a really large project, you may need to change your needle somewhere halfway in between. If you have any other questions about pins and needles, please be sure to ask them in the comments of this video, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And go ahead and give us a thumbs up, and we love your likes. Let us know what a great job that we're doing, and what product would you like me to cover next from Grace Company. Bye.